We're just days away from a 2025 reset when people are going to start doing New Year resolutions and they're going to start to try to reform themselves, revamp themselves, make vampant promises that they're not going to keep, maybe some promises that they actually will keep. But let me just talk about a gear reset that I think that you should do. Doesn't just have to be for your everyday carry gear. This can be for your survival, tech, prep, any of that type of stuff. We're going to have some of the Black Rock. This is the Old Town Coffee, but this is their holiday edition that I bought in like mid-November, which is actually kind of been a banger. I've been enjoying this. I'm almost out of it, and I don't know if they sell it. I might actually hop on my bike and go check that out. We're gonna do a longo today, and I think I'm pronouncing that right. And a longo is normally I do like 18 grams of coffee, and I would do 36 gram of liquid going through the espresso cup to produce a 36 gram of espresso. But this time, I will do 18 grams of coffee and pump through, we will call it a little bit less than 60 grams of water to do. I think they call it a longo. Somebody comment down below if I'm getting that name wrong. You know, I've been just trying to do different methods of espresso. So we'll do 18 grams here. But the first thing you got to do for resetting your gear is clean it. Okay, I know some people may start with assess it and all this other type of stuff. I think that cleaning is an easy way for you to prepare to even assess the gear that you may or may not have. And you may not even want to assess it if you can't really, if you pick it up and it disgusts you, or if the area around it disgusts you, that can happen quite a bit. Case in point, I have been telling a lot of folks here that I want to do a studio tour here in this man cave. It's been almost 2 years since I've done a studio tour. And a lot of the reason that it has not happened is because my studio that's behind me is a one-car garage. That is normally in pretty decent shape. I can normally manage that well. But the rest of the man cave is a two-car garage, which I also share with a family of 7, 5 kids, me and the wife. There's a lot of us around here. And so what oftentimes happens is that we do end up with the garage just kind of being the dumping ground for people's, maybe not trash, but for their upcoming projects, maybe their trash, maybe a school trip, maybe something that they do or don't want in their vehicle. And so, not trying to make an excuse, but I am keeping it real that a lot of times it will result in me not doing the tour itself because I can't necessarily begin to determine how I want to show it, how I want to begin to do stuff, and all that type of stuff. And it's a first world excuse. But the point being is for your gear, you need to do a Chinese field day. I don't know, is this an offensive term that we Marines began to use? I don't know, but I'm going to use it anyway. The Chinese field day is a term that we used when I was a young Marine that lived on base in the barracks. In the Chinese field days, we had to literally take everything out of our barracks room to include the dresser that was installed by the builder of the building, the TVs, your bed, your mattress, and clean everything, clean underneath your drawers, clean everything all together. And it would help you determine whether or not if you had exactly what you wanted, too much of something, but it doesn't start until you actually begin to do the field day process, and that's very important. Same kind of goes for your EDC, your survival tech prep, whatever gear, or your space. You know, clean out drawers, polish metals, maybe don't polish other metals, and I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. First, let's get this poured out here, and let's see. So we will do a couple of step methods. Folks have asked me, I make these videos, what the hell am I doing? Well, first, what we're doing here is we have the coffee that has just been ground, put into the puck, but I want to distribute it a little bit. And then after the coffee is distributed, I normally will take this stone looking thing and just kind of make sure that the coffee is as even as possible before I tamp it down. Then we take the tamper, we tamp the coffee down, and it normally gets us a result that looks similar to this, which is just the coffee in a bed. So overall, you know, you may want to polish some metals, you may want to patina some other metals. And I usually do that stuff at the beginning of the year. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. So here is the Woburn X2. I patinaed this earlier this year. I'm saying last year, like we're already in 2025. And what I did here is I got this thing brand new, beautiful, bold, copper, but I force patinaed it, and that was me kind of going through and forcing it to look how I wanted it to look. But maybe you have other type of metals, what brass or something like that, that you want to hit with some brass. So you want to actually polish it. You want to try to get rid of imperfections, surface rust, that type of stuff. Maybe it's time to condition your leather. I'm wearing some good boots right now by Thursday Boots. Speaking of that, did you check out my tier 2 gear of the year list? Because these boots are a part of that gear of the year list. We're gonna just throw this in an Americano sized cup. But the point is, you know, as I wear these boots, they need to be sometimes hit with different ointment. They need to be brushed. You know, I wear them I try not to, I don't purposely get out there in the rain in my boots or anything like that. But if it's drizzling, if it's wet, if I have shit to do, I don't avoid weather conditions just because I'm wearing a specific type of boot, which means I oftentimes have to make sure I give it a good polish. This also can include your leather jackets. Maybe you still got your members only jacket or something like that, but this does produce a nice longo in here, 60 ounces of espresso just poured into the cup. But before I even stir it or take a sip, one thing about me is I cannot enjoy my coffee if my coffee area is looking like really, really atrocious. So I tend to immediately start to clean before I take my first sip. So the next time I come back to it, it's kind of ready to rock and roll instead of me having to clean it for 2 or 3 minutes. So we'll give this a quick stir and give it a quick taste. Longo. Oh man, that's good. But, you know, you may want to condition your, clean your gear. Just kind of helps with the reset process. Step 2 of the gear reset process is checking for worn down conditions of your stuff. Check the O-rings on your flashlights. A lot of times when you buy these flashlights, I'm very bad about this, but the manufacturer will give you additional O-rings. This one here is a red one, which is actually kind of unique. Most of the time they're black. This is a flashlight by Streamlight. But if you have additional rings that were given to you by the manufacturer, if yours is cracked, that helps with the weather sealing, the IP rating of these type of devices. Check those and see how they're wearing down. If they're wearing down, check the elastic bands on some of your headbands, whether it's like your Apple Vision Pro, if you're a tech head, you know, these type of elastic bands on your headsets, your headlamps that go onto your actual grape. You may have other devices that kind of go around. Maybe you wear a helmet when you go rucking or something like that. You want to just make sure those bands are still good to go as well. Check your boot and shoelaces to ensure that there's no fraying, there's no tearing. They're not going to fail you when you go to tie them, and then you start to walk half a mile away from your house, and then your boot lace is all ripped up and you don't EDC a boot lace. I'm telling you from experience. Check the pearl snaps and buttons on your flannels, your jackets, all that type of stuff. Pearl snaps usually tend to be in pretty good shape, but a lot of times with your shirts, your jeans, your trousers, they give you additional buttons, and if one is almost coming off, save it, learn some basic sewing skills, sew it back on. If it's pearl snaps, take it to a tailor. If you really like that garment, let them fix it. If there's rips on the seams, let them fix it. So that type of stuff as well. Check the lithium ion batteries, lithium phosphate batteries, NMC batteries. Check your batteries, okay? I highly recommend, if you get the opportunity. Everyone's not going to go to this extreme, but if you're just the type of person that likes to keep the longevity of your stuff as much as possible, get yourself something like this. This is the DL24. This is it's really a tester of different devices. It doesn't just have to test batteries, but you can test the watt output, the volt output, the capacity. I mainly use it for capacity testing different batteries on power stations, sometimes on my battery banks. And this thing's a pretty simple process. You basically would give this thing power. You would plug it up to whatever battery bank that you have. And once you have this plugged into your battery bank or your larger battery, let's say you have a big battery used for storage, this device will drain, using the fan on here, the entire battery and tell you what output it got from that battery. For instance, I bought this thing I think 4 years ago. This is a 30,000 milliamp hour battery. I just tested this out last week. I only got 11,900 milliamp hours of capacity. That means that I've lost well over 60% of the capacity of this battery bank. So maybe it's time to take this to Best Buy and chunk it into their recycle area and buy myself a new one. So that type of stuff. So maybe you can test out your batteries. If you don't have all that, even being able to test out your bigger batteries, get yourself maybe you get yourself a battery tester for your larger batteries. This could be something that you consider as well. This is what I use to check the batteries in my vehicle to jumpstart it, but it's also a trickle charger. And you can also use this to check your larger LiPo4 batteries to ensure that those are maintaining their capacity, because I have like large 1,000 amp hour LiPo4 batteries that I can test with this thing. I'll link up some of the stuff I use for testing down below if you want to check those out. Also, if you're getting good content out of this video, hit the like button. Like, why not? You might as well. You're sitting here rocking with your boy, and I appreciate that type of stuff. So you've done your cleaning, you checked for worn components, you have checked the battery levels and stuff like that. That's stuff that can run out. Also, while checking those batteries, before I move to the next point, determine if there's any old battery tech you can get rid of. If you still have like acid batteries, or if you're using NMC batteries and you want to use the LiPo4, maybe you can replace that component. Maybe you're using old school AA batteries and you want to go to rechargeable batteries. Those are areas where you can make that assessment as well when you're checking your batteries. Next thing is, now you can finally do the assessment of what you have and if it's time to upgrade. A lot of people may lead with that when it comes to a reset for your gear, but I don't necessarily believe that. So look for upgrade opportunities. Is your knife still being sharpened all the time because you're using your gear, you're using your knife? Maybe it's time to get away from 440C. Maybe you're tired of always having to sharpen it all the time. You're not that good at sharpening, but you're good at using your knife. Maybe that's an opportunity to look for another knife with a higher grade of steel. Maybe you don't use a knife that needs to be sharpened. Maybe you get yourself a very good razor blade because you use your knife so often, but it's for petty tasks and you don't want to spend money on a knife. You can get yourself a Milwaukee Fastback. Maybe you hate the blade shape of your knife. You got yourself a recurve knife. You thought it was going to be great. You got a spades knife. You got a Warney and you hate it. It doesn't work for the type of cuts that you need. You want to pinch it sometimes and do certain types of cuts or whatever. Maybe it's time for you to go back and just make an investment for something you feel more comfortable with. So you might just say, hey, I want to get something that's more like drop point or straight back, or something that I'm more familiar with, not doing this again. Maybe you know that that's an opportunity for you, an upgrade for you. It's not an upgrade because they're parallel, you know, different types of knife shapes may be parallel, but it's an upgrade for your specific type of knife or life. And maybe your flashlight dies too often. Maybe it's actually time for you to get a larger capacity flashlight, or it's time for you to get a flashlight that does not have a built-in internal battery. So this, like I mentioned earlier, is the Woobin X2. It's a fantastic little flashlight, but it does have a built-in battery, which I cannot replace. If it's dying very often, then the only thing I can do is send this back to Woobin to get a new battery, or get another flashlight that has a battery I can change out. Let's just say, for instance, it does have a user replaceable battery, but it's just not a big enough battery. Maybe this Streamlight 2AX flashlight doesn't have the capacity to be turned on the entire ruck there and back, plus a break, maybe exercises in between, and I need a larger capacity flashlight. Maybe the flashlight doesn't produce enough lumens. Maybe you thought that 200 lumens is going to be fine for an everyday flashlight for just doing stuff around the house, doing stuff here and there, and then you found yourself actually needing more light because it's dark in the woods or it's dark in certain places. And you may decide that those are areas for you to upgrade your gear. Check your boots. Maybe they need to be resoled, maybe they need to be replaced. Upgrade opportunities, replacement opportunities, because you've done an assessment of those first three items. And then the last one, the kind of things that you don't necessarily do every single day. I'll link a video that talks about how I use my everyday carry journal. And I reset my journal every day. And 2025, I start with a brand new journal. I take my old journal and I put it away in a drawer. And it talks about, I want to start to use a journal every day, and I want to start to write every day, and how I'm going to go about doing that type of stuff. What's going to be my method for doing that type of stuff. And then here's the final thing I say for my gear reset is the KonMari method. I think her name is Allison KonMari. I forgot her first name, but the KonMari method is you pick a weekend or a day, depending on how large the area that you have to go through, and you decide that you're going to touch everything in a specific space. If that item no longer gives you joy, you throw it away, you sell it, you give it away, you donate it. One of those things. So for instance, I may decide to KonMari this one car garage studio behind me, and I would touch everything in this area. Records, record players, an Xbox, a PS5, EDC gear, whatever. If it no longer brings me joy, I get rid of it. Even if I use it every day, if it no longer brings me joy or usefulness, I would get rid of it. So there could be some categories for that. For instance, I haven't turned my PS5 on in probably 2 months. I play my Xbox Series X at least once a week. The PS5, I don't pay for an online account, so I can't even play with buddies. I don't have that many games for it. I bought it for the PS5 exclusives, which I don't purchase. And so maybe that's something that doesn't bring me joy anymore. So as I'm going through and cleaning out drawers and I decide to do the KonMari method, it might be something I decide to do. What do you do for a gear reset? Let me know what you like to do. I've had my coffee and it's the day after Christmas. I actually have to work for a few hours, so I'm gonna get to that because this was just my morning coffee. But if this is your first time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.